Hey everyone, Cray here. I'm bringing you a PKing guide for Rs3, and this guide is good for PC users as well as mobile users. We're going to go over everything from gear setups to ability bars, inventory setups, combo foods, prayer setups, familiars, and more. So let's get into the first thing that we want to talk about. Is probably one of the most important things is prayer. I mentioned this in my last video, but that video kind of outdated, so let's bring you up something new and fresh. So most important thing definitely is protect item. Keep one extra item if you die. It means if you get skulled, things like that, then you're not going to lose everything you have. Now, if you don't plan on sculling up, this video is not really for you. This isn't an anti-PKing video, even though you can anti-PK, but you'd have to avoid using like AoE abilities and things like that. But when this guide is going to go over all the abilities that you're going to need to know to make sure you get that kill. So first one, let's go over ability bars for like mage, for example. You're going to want to have protect item set to active when you do your quick prayer. If you're using soul split, things like that, you can have that as your quick prayer, and then you're going to want to use one of those three for melee, range, or mage. Now if you're using like regular prayers, you can always swap this out for smite, or if you're getting hit hard back, then you can always protect from melee, magic, and range. But most of that is kind of self-explanatory on the prayer setup. But gotta say it again, protect item, big number one. You want to protect your item when you die, if you die, because being out in the wilderness, there's always that possibility. Alright, let's go straight over to inventory setups. For the most part, it'll be the same all around. You're going to want combo foods, prayer potions, super restores. If you use super restores, they act as also, prayer regeneration as well as stat regeneration. If you're bringing like a BYOB for a longer trip, you can always swap out food for extra prayer potions. Now if you're using 6 doses, this would be a fair amount to bring with you in almost any situation. But if you plan on being out there even longer, then most likely you're going to want to bring more. These are useful if you're using like a DPS familiar, such as a Steel Titan or a Blood Ripper. Oh, sorry, not a Blood Ripper. Ripper Demon. And then you can also use like the Niles, like the Blood Nile, Ice Nile, I believe is what they're called, for those other boosts. But two biggest number ones for me is Steel Titan and Ripper Demon. Now, next thing I'll mention is the proteins. If you fall under a certain HP, it'll bring back up some life points. The one I use is this one here. This one actually damages the attacker, so if they attack me back, it'll damage them. Now, if for any reason you don't have the definition level to make those, you can use these ones here. These ones are actually buyable in the Grand Exchange, and you'll see here they're really cheap, so easy to buy. And let's go on to the next thing, the combo foods. So right now I'm using the rocktail with the blue bubbler jellyfish and then Cerebrews, and these are great when you're using like overloads. Now I'll also mention, if you don't have overloads, and how Cerebrews will lower your stats, so it's not necessarily like the best thing for you all the time. In those situations, if you need to swap out say the overload to something else, I'll show you what that can be right now. So I just remove the overload, go over here. You'd use something like, you know, the Super War Master Potion is like a pretty decent one. And then instead of Cerebrews, you just take all those out and replace it with something like this. I'll show you. These are amazing. Super Gothic brew flasks. They also come in like the smaller 4-dose version, which are a little cheaper. But basically you can eat this one, and this one all in the same click if you click it in that order. Rockfish, jelly, and then the brew, whether it's the Cerebrew or this one. A cool fact about this Guthix Restore, or Guthix Brew, is it also acts as a miniature version of the Adrenaline Potion, which is another potion I'd recommend bringing, like a Super Adrenaline Potion, to help you boost your adrenaline and get that quicker kill. I usually only bring like a 1 dose, because you can really only use it, I think, like once per minute. And once I drink it, once I get the kill, you kind of have that empty inventory spot that you can just fill with, you know, whatever you get from your kill, so you don't waste sips of those potions. So we went over that. So if you don't have overloads, you still got a pretty solid inventory setup with combo foods. I'll also show you, say, what else? You could also add in, if you have these, you can also add in a Fury Shark or 2. So if you see like a gang of people and you think they're gonna try to smite you or use an Ancient Mace on you, that'll lower your prayer points dramatically, or you'd lose your item. These Fury Sharks, a cool fact about them, they heal a lot, but they also will protect an extra item, guaranteed for a whole minute once you eat it. Now, if you don't die within that minute, the effect will wear off, and then you'll be vulnerable again to possibly getting smited for your item. I don't recommend using this to try to protect a second item unless you have a whole bunch of them and, you know, to spare, just because they do take time to get. It's not an item that's buyable off the Grand Exchange. You have to kill like the lava worms out in the wild for them. But that's a cool little thing. You could probably look up more about this one on like Wiki if you really wanted to. Another really useful item, which I'll mention 2 items when I'm bringing this one up, is Weapon Poison plus plus plus. Make sure you get the one with 3 pluses so you can maximize your damage. And also, since I'm also recommending this item, I also like to also recommend another item that you can bring with you that actually will heal poison. So this restores negative stat changes in all stats, and it also replenishes prayer, but also removes any poison, and then you become immune to poison for a little while. So I figured you definitely want to bring some of these with you as well. Alright, next thing's in my inventory. Since I'm using Mage, it takes up quite a few inventory slots to bring all this stuff, but you got to bring your air spells. And cool fact about air spells is whether you're using Air Surge or Fire Surge, see, the damage scales to 99 in either one. So they both do the same amount of damage, but you don't have to bring the fire runes with you. Just bring for Air Surge, you'll be doing just as much damage. Other thing is bring enough runes such as law runes, chaos runes, death runes, so you can teleblock people. And that prevents people from teleporting away for a whole 5 minutes. And if you're using mage, there's not really any ways to really entangle them in place besides using this spell. So I definitely recommend bringing some entangles with you if you're on the regular spell book underneath 30 wild. Because anywhere 30 wild or under, people can use like a ring of wealth, a glory amulet, or the wilderness sword if it's the 3rd tier to teleport away. Alright. Now if you're using something like range, see here I got tons more room where I can put food, more food, and then if you can always swap out some food for, teleblocks. Because cool thing about teleblock is your mage bonus doesn't really matter when using it. So you can be in full range gear and use a teleblock, and it just has just as much chance to hit as if you're in mage gear. So it doesn't really matter in that case whether you're using mage, range, or even melee. I'll go over some more details about my mage gear. For armor, you can use the superior skeletal armor like what I have here, or you could even use like mystics, which I have tons of like sets of mystics, just because if I'm going against a clan, those are pretty cheap, not hard to replenish plenty more of if I need more. Now these capes right here, Guthix capes, they're free. You can get them at the mage arena out in the wild, which was also known as Mage Bank, which is east of like the wilderness agility course. This necklace here is a really great necklace. If you fall under, I believe it's 10% HP health, then it will automatically heal you for a good 25% of your health or 20% of your health. But that's a lifesaver for a lot of people out in the wild. Ring of Wealth, I kind of mentioned. If you're 30 wilderness or under, you can teleport out, no problem. Also, you get some nice strength bonuses, range and mage bonus from the Ring of Wealth, so it's a cheap option to easily get some extra bonuses. Big thing about all your weapons that you're going to be using in the wilderness, I recommend getting ones that are augmentable. Now you don't have to risk a noxious staff like I do, but the one perk you definitely want on here really is like mobile, unless you have that new relic from the Sinister dig site, then you could use that one in its place probably. But I'd recommend just putting it on your item and saving those relics for other useful perks like Fury or Berserker and so on. I'll show you 2 other staffs that you could probably use. Now if you're on like real budget and you're real afraid of losing stuff, you could use a poly staff, but the sad part about that is you can't augment it. But the ones you are able to augment are the Staff of Limitless Air. You can put a mobile perk, Crackling, and other perks on there. Now you can put any perks on there that are going to help you with like DPS in any way, whether it be Crackling, Precise, Biting, a few other ones. You can kind of be creative in that area, but just mobile is like number 1 for me. And the other one is another cheap option, which puts at high DPS, is if you wanted to make a superior Zuriel staff. That one doesn't cost too much to make. You could put mobile, Biting, Combo, that's a real cheap one to make, as well as like Crackling, which throws out that extra DPS for you. I don't really bring this out PKing much, but I did end up doing precise and mobile on this just in case I wanted to bring this one out to fight anyone, near like the World 2 wall and things like that, where it's less likely to get smited. Definitely don't bring out anything that you don't want to lose in multi-zone areas, where it's like multi-combat, just because you can run into that risk of getting smited. So let's see, we went over those items for my mage. The one thing I didn't mention yet was the reason why I used the ancient book is because of its special effect. This special effect will actually have a chance of freezing someone in place. So I almost think even if they're using anticipation or freedom, it almost like freezes them in place still. There's something weird about this effect, but it's become really useful for me in the wild when the people are going to try to escape. Okay, let's go on over to range setup. So now your range setup, I got the firebolt, the dragonstone bolts in here at the moment, but I actually like to switch that up to things like this, where you can steal their prayer. These sapphire bolts are awesome. Or if you want to really help, like try to stop them from getting away, you could use a bolt like this, where it'll actually churn off your opponent's run in PvP. So I mean, that's pretty sweet. They'd have to wonder why the heck they're only walking when they're running away from you, and then you gotta, then they have to turn back on their run energy to continue running away again. So that's always a cool one. And with range setup, it's real easy to get armor for this. So you just buy royal d'hide sets. For the Vam bracelets, you can upgrade them to the spiky Vams, which gives you an extra range bonus, some extra DPS on those. And then the Ava's accumulator is nice. I actually have my range cape on the stand in that dinosaur island place. When you get your little house there upgraded to tier 3, then you can put any skill cape and have its skill cape throughout the game. And then the rest of my stuff, dungeoneering, you don't have to copy any of that stuff. I just have that on there just for the heck of it. When I'm doing my PVM, it's useful when it's on my max cape. But again, I'll use that same book, the ancient book, same necklace, same ring, just the inventory setup. You'll be able to put some more food in there. And then same thing again, you can trade out the Overlord for range potions, so on. And Gothic's brews if you don't have overloads, so you're not reducing your stats with Cerebrews. Alright, let's move on to the next one, which is melee. I won't go too much into melee again, because I don't really use melee all that much, but usually when I'm using melee is when I'll bring out my Ripper Demon, and I'll bring out, the scrolls for him. But great thing about Ripper Demon and the scrolls is I'll show you. So before you even go out PKing, you can summon your Ripper Demon, use the scrolls right on him, so it saves you inventory space, and he'll automatically use those scrolls when you're out there PKing, and then you just fill up the rest with food. Another cool thing is you can actually go to the Warden's Retreat and boost your HP too there if you have the fireplace unlocked. So you go out to the wilderness with a boosted HP, so it's less likely to get KO'd. That cool little tip in there, definitely useful. So for inventory setup here, any of you wondering about ability bars, I'll go into more details about that soon. But this is the melee gear. Cheap armor, again. Use the strength cape just because it helps with the bleeds, dismember, damage over time, lasts extra time. And then same items. Dragon armor is real cheap, gives you a strength bonus. Rock shell. You can also change this out for like royal rune armor, which is real cheap as well. Especially if you're just getting the first tier of it, which I don't recommend getting any higher than that. It's not really necessary. Unless you're confident that you're not going to die, then again, it's only a few mil. Now for the main hand item, again, I recommend putting the mobile perk on here. I was going for mobile with crackling, but didn't want to give it to me, so I just threw this on here because I don't really use melee all that much. Good thing about the Vista Longsword, if you're using melee, is it has a special attack. So if you're going through abilities or trying to get a quick KO, you can kind of throw in that special attack because you don't need 50% adrenaline to use it. So you could even use it after using like Destroy and then throw that in there real quick for a nice combo. Alright, so next thing is you can always swap out those items for other things, but if you're doing dual build, just buy something cheap like a outer longsword offhand, 73k, so it's not like you're risking bank. Now for two-handed weapons, that's easy. You can just easily get an augmented superior Vista spear. Don't make fun of me about these perks. Again, it's another item I barely use. I don't go PKing too much with melee, unless I'm just messing around. And then same inventory setup. You can bring a Blood Reaper or Yak. But yeah. So let's go over abilities now. I'm going to make this real simple for everyone. Now, I know going over all these combos, things like that, I mean, that's all really cool and useful. But sometimes it gets real complicated. And when to use what. The main things that you want to remember how to use when you're doing this stuff is like when to, say when you're fighting, use escape, to get away from someone or break free from a bind, and when to use freedom and when to use an anticipation. I always recommend using anticipation before you think your opponent's going to use their combo, or before you want to set off all your thresholds, before you use like an adrenaline potion or something like that, just so you don't feel like it goes to waste. Freedom you're gonna want to use when the opponent is trying to asphyxiate you, or they're trying to choke you, or do the destroy combo where it like stuns you for quite a few seconds. That's when you gotta really use freedom to protect yourself from dying in that situation. I will pull this up a little closer so you see a quick way where you can do this. You could swap that out with like Metamorpheus. So I put it in this row because Dragonfire for Mage is going to be like your number one thing. It's going to disable protection prayers in PvP. Now, it doesn't disable like protect item. That's always going to stay on for you. But say if you're using like protect from magic, protect from melee, or protect from range, it'll just turn off those overhead prayers. And then, so you can always try to keep their protection prayers off, so you, of course, do more damage. And you can kind of copy what I have down at the bottom. Anything that you don't have, you can substitute with something else. And if you're using dual wield magic, you can of course substitute it, you know, concentrated blast and things like that instead. Alright, just a few seconds and I'll pull back out of this. So you can save this, take a screenshot or something, so you can easily duplicate that bar. Alright, let's show you my range bar next, which is another pretty simple thing for the most part. The only thing that you're going to want to change to is range. I find just a little more complicated due to the fact that snipe, you can't really use that while you're moving unless you have those razor gloves. So for this, for example, you see how I have snipe over in the... why isn't it showing? Yeah. But yeah, you see how I have snipe over here. And then I got my freedom, my anticipation all over there. But for the revolution bar, you see down here, I use like the combust and the scare tactic, unlockable, where it knocks him back, so the combust will do more damage. And this is a great ability, corruption blast. Now if you have something such as greater ricochet, of course throw that in like one of your number 1 slots before combust, just because that's going to put out more DPS for you. But this is the bar I've had a lot of good luck with using range. Now, let's see here. What if we switch over to melee? Give me 1 second. This is acting up. Let's swap worlds real quick, see if we can fix this. My action bar is acting up a little bit. Alright, there we go. Perfect. Now, let's go over melee real quick. So melee is going to be different than a lot of the other ones. You're going to want to swap out certain abilities. For example, let's just show you the combo I would put over here. So of course you're going to want anticipation, freedom. You're not going to want to use that really. And then in situations, you're going to want to be able to use that, as well as teleblock. You can throw that in there as well. And then for the other abilities, it's been a while since I had my melee bar set up. You could throw Berserk down here too. Okay, so again, so Barge, that's an important one when you're using melee. So if someone binds you, you can use Barge to get right back next to them and continue attacking them. And then of course you still have anticipation, freedom. Surge if you're trying to get closer to them as well. And I'll show you the revolution bar easily that I use for melee. So I put this one in the front again. That's to disable protection prayers from people. And then you continue with your rotation through things. Now you can swap out the kicking for like a quick stun like that. Backhand. That'll kind of prevent them from getting kicked away from you when you're in close distance, which is sometimes Now, exactly what you want to do is move them away when you're using melee and a melee distance. Alright, now that you see that ability bar, you can easily copy that and utilize it however you like. And you can swap out some of these inventory spots and add some utility blocks in there if you're fighting under 30 wild. And I'll show you the dual wield revolution bar for PvP. So for the left side, that'll pretty much remain the same if you have a special attack weapon, or you can swap it out for something else like vulnerability to increase your damage as well. That's a useful spell when you're PvPing. Yeah, you do improve your damage by 10% for a whole minute. That's another thing, just like TV, where you don't need a high mage bonus or anything to utilize it. Main thing that you'll change here is all your dual wield abilities and thresholds, such as like Hurricane, and so on. So Smash is another one where you have to swap it out for the Havoc. And Smash is your two-handed version to disable the overhead protection prayers and make sure that you're putting out the most DPS you can. Okay, and then on to the next items that we have in line. So, here, let's see. Alright, so summoning familiars. These are the 3 that I would recommend, or the 4 different familiars I could recommend. Mammoth is of course really useful because it will hold the most items when you're out there PKing. But Pack Yak or even a Tortoise will work perfect in those situations. If you do bring those BOB familiars that are going to bring more items for you, then I recommend maybe throwing in an extra 2 6 flask, restore potions and things like that, just to make sure you don't lose any of your weapons. Now I'll show you a useful tip if you are using, say, a Pack Yak, for example. So I'll summon my Pack Yak. There it is. Now load it up. I have all these set to presets, as you see over here. I got my 1, 2, 3, 4. I even have a 5 if I'm doing Wild Slayer. Or if I'm trying to get like a quick KO on someone, I have my setup for that. If I'm not going deep wild, of course. But let's load this up real quick and I'll show you what I do with my familiar. So when you're creating your familiar, look over to the right side of the screen. If I scroll down, it's all rocktail fish, and then you see that one little cave fish in there. Now there's a reason why I throw that in there, is so when you're actually getting down to the bottom of your yak and you're running out of food, when you see that cave fish, you're gonna know that you're almost out of food and you should probably get out of there. Take off running south until you can teleport, or teleport right away, or escape. And that's my recommendation with that. And since I'm bringing all that extra food in the Pack Yak, I'll throw in an extra like 2 restores in here as well. Yeah, so no matter how many restores you think you'll need, always bring at least 1 extra, because that 1 extra will really help you if you get down to that last one, like, okay, now it's time to go too, because you don't want to risk losing your items. Okay, so let's go on to some other useful tips Now that we talked about the Beast of Burdens, the DPS familiars, and how we can add the scrolls right into those familiars, just so it saves you more inventory spots. So the useful tips is setting your pet options to be what you need them to be. So for example, if you're using, why can't I, there it is. So if you're using, so you go in your settings, gameplay, under the summoning, this is where you'll change the familiar interaction. So if you're clicking that button, you'll either be taking BOB or doing a special move. Now you don't want to be in the middle of a fight and accidentally trying to do like a special move when you're actually trying to take the items out of your familiar. So just make sure you have this updated to what you need it to be before you go out to the wild. So whether you're using the DPS familiar or this. I always just set this to BOB. I never really change it because I put the scrolls right into the DPS familiar, so I don't ever really have to press special attack. And if I do, then I can usually just, it's right there in green. If I just click and hold, if I want to manually press it, but you don't really have to do that. Okay, other huge useful thing that you can do is I'm going to show you something wild. I'll go right to the wilderness to show you, because you know how the wilderness can be a really dark place, and it's not like the most visible thing. So if you click over here in the top right corner, like where your map is, all that, the little minimize. It might be a little different on PC, but it's going to be the same idea. It's going to be called Skybox and Filters. Now, say if I got rid of this, clear it, don't have any filters. This is going to be kind of like what the wilderness will look like. I also have my graphics really set to minimum, so you can see everything a little bit better. There we go. Oops, why isn't this working? Oh, I accidentally switched my presets. Okay, so if that's not working, and like down here, it'll also be like a super dark area. Now watch this. You switch the skybox filter to, I like midday. That's a really nice one for me. And then boom, I can see everything clearly. No biggie. Now, and then when I go up top, it'll continue being nice and clear, so I can see everything clearly. That's always a huge useful tip. Other useful tip is, say when you're running away from bad guys and stuff, if you take off at, like, say, if you're running away from bad guys and you run, at angles, you can technically sometimes like go through trees and stuff, depending on the trees and bushes. So I'm trying to show a good example of that. It doesn't always work, but a lot of times it can work. Say like this tree's here and you're running away from people, I just zoom through all those trees and you can continue running. So when you're ever using your surge and you're trying to run away from people, I recommend doing it at angles. See, it just went through all those trees. Now, since they're chasing you, most likely they'll probably end up being like the same way. Oh, a little level 69 out here, no biggie. And I'll give you a few spots. I'll tell you a few spots where you can go PKing at. One, of course, is in the Revenant's dungeon, which is here, and then you run north to the Revenants. The other locations where you can go PKing at is, I'll show you now. Once this loads up. Okay, so the wilderness, so here's the lodestone here, right here. That's where I am, right next to the Revenant's cave. A good PKing spot is here at the volcano. And then if you go northwest, oh, you see that? That's actually the big lava worm, the big one. And then over here is another good spot where you'll see like a lot of lava worms. If you kill them, you can get the searing ashes from them, which go for usually up to like 100k each. So if you kill them for like a few of their kills, if they had 10 ashes, you'd make a quick meal. And then the agility arena, a lot of people use demonic skulls there. You're not going to get much money there, but if you hop all the worlds, you might make, you know, like 3 mil or something real quick there. Another fun place is right next to the Rogue's Castle. You'll have the Chaos Elemental. That's another fun spot to PK at. It is in multi though, and very deep wild, so be careful for teams. There are some smite teams out there that'll try to smite you, so don't bring anything too expensive. You could always just bring something simple, like a T70 staff or something like that. Now there's a bunch of like spots where you can PK people where they're doing Slayer, such as where the Chaos Altar where people do prayer. If people are brave enough, they have like the whole noted bones in their inventory, and that could be a huge PK if they're not thinking too wisely. Over here you have like water fiends, some hunting spots, charming moths. Not really recommend to PK at charming moths. The only thing you'll get is really maybe a few demonic skulls, which drop for 500k each. The red dragon lair, really no one really ever goes there. Other great spots to PK at is when war bands is happening. Every few hours you can go to war bands in any of those war bands locations that are active. You'll find other PKers there. Or if you just want to PK the people getting the supplies. A lot of people say that's kind of frowned upon. They get real angry and toxic. But if you need the XP, they're in the wild. Everyone that's in the wild, fair game. You can kill anyone out here. You know, no hard feelings. Or if they do have hard feelings, you know, they went to the wild. So I hope this is all very helpful for you. I believe I went over everything, as from the combo food, the inventory setup, the gear, range, mage, melee setups, augmented perks, mobiles #1, your prayers, you know, protect item. Even though I'm not in a fight, when I had my map up, I should have technically had this on. I could have got KO'd at any time. Doesn't really take much to get KO'd in this game, especially with all these tier 90, 92, 95 weapons, and who knows what they're going to have in the future. Comboed with the special attacks. If you have any comments or questions, anything at all, man, leave those things in the comments below, and I'll definitely try to include them in my next video. I really hope this helped you guys out a lot compared to my last video. And if you make a comment down below, of course I'll reply and do my best to help you out with any way I can, and keep these videos coming out, because it seems like some people out there want the PvP community to come back in Rs3 as well as I do. Also, if you love the video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. You know, it really will help the channel. And once I hit a certain number of subscribers, I'll even be able to do live videos right from YouTube, which will be really cool. I kind of look forward to doing for you guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.